Hi everybody, it's Flag Friday. I'm very excited. I've got my new big ironing mat, so I can have that to work on. It's very exciting. I loved working with my smaller one, so I ended up getting a bigger one. It also means as well it looks a bit tidier because my table is getting a bit chipped, seeing as I keep getting my glue gun stuck on it. Anyway, that's by the by. So what are we doing today? Well, we're going to go back in time and we're going to look at a darning technique and doing a circle and a hole. So I'm hoping this is going to work. I'm doing the video. This might disappear off into the ether and we do something totally different if it doesn't work, but fingers crossed everything's going to be okay. So what do we need? Well, you need your flag and your template. So I've got my little template there. And then you're going to need a piece of fabric and two threads, two different coloured threads. So I've got a piece of fabric that I got in one of my Linladan treasure boxes. Lovely piece of fabric. It needs to be fairly sturdy because we're going to cut a hole in it and then we're going to darn. So you need to choose two threads that sort of match with your piece, but they need to stand out, nice contrasting colours, because we're going to create the warp and weft of the actual piece. So what we need to do is pop on our template. I would advise putting it into a hoop and just draw around your template. Hopefully this is going to show up. Yep. Okay, so we can see that I've got my template, and then I need to find myself something circular. So I didn't think about this before I did this. So it needs to be something circular. Well, I've got all my bobbins, but there needs to be some room either side. So I've got like a finger's width either side because we're going to cut a hole out of the middle of our template. So I'm going to go maybe towards the bottomy bit, I think. Do I go bottom? Bottom, yeah, we'll go. No, I'm going to go a bit higher up. There we go. Right, made a decision. Make a decision, Anne. Right, so, oops. This is the bit that I've no idea if this is going to work. But we'll just crack on. So we're just going to use a running stitch and then some weaving. So this normally would have been done over a darning mushroom. So you'd put that inside your clothes so then you could stitch against it. Love that. I just love them. They're just absolutely gorgeous. Okay, so it's in my embroidery hoop. Just get your tension, tighten your hoop up, so that once we cut the hole out, it's going to hold its shape. Okay, here we go. Let's snip. Okay, looks a bit exciting there. It's not done this before. So what we're going to do is we're going to recreate the warp and weft that would be in the hole. So once we've done that, there we go. So we've got our hole. Might keep that. Oh, see, you could put that there because we're stitching over it anyway. Oh, right, yeah, so we're going to offset. Oh, quite like that as well, slightly offset. Offset, I've never even thought about that because you could stitch and then we've got a funny darny shape. Right, I'm going to do that. Oh, best laid plans and everything. Okay. Right, so I'm just going to pin that in place. I hope this works. I'm just making this up as per usual. Okay, right, so I've got my first thread, and basically what we're going to do is you're going to do a running stitch up and down, and then when you get to here you just have a straight stitch and then you carry on your running stitch and we go up and down, and then we're just going to do it the other way as well. So I'm going to make a start, move everything to one side. Okay, so just going to do a running stitch. This bit, I think, around the edge. Obviously, if you were doing it with some clothes, this is the bit that's going to give you some of the stability to your piece. And what you want to do is each line of stitch goes out a little bit further, and then try and get your stitches, bring that down, there we go, stitches fairly even. I don't tend to darn things these days. I'm a great one for repatching my clothes. I have a pair of jeans that are my favourite jeans. And first I discovered the bit at the top of your legs was beginning, I'd got a hole, I'd bent over and I created a hole in my jeans. But they're my favourites, so I ended up patching them, and then I put a hole in the knee because it had gone really thin, so I ended up patching that, and they're actually now my favourite jeans. I think there's probably going to end up being more patch than jean by the time I've finished. So when you come down to the end, just do one more stitch. Right, so what we're going to do now, she says, there we go. So I'm going to go down one more stitch. So this time, so I've got my line stitches there. 1, 2. So this time it'll come up and you go across your hole, and then, oops, it's not going to go in there, so there we go, over the top. So what I've done, I've got my zigzag stitch, and then here where the hole is, it's just one stitch that goes over the top. And then you come back down, same thing again, so you work out where you're coming out, over your hole. Now I would normally go in there, so I'm going to go in a bit further down. So when you've got your thread, just double check that your length of thread is going to take you back all the way up, because you don't want to have to stop. If you're going to stop, you need to stop at either end. It's quite handy actually having a hole and get your finger in there. Obviously don't prick your finger. So then this one, right, this is what you've got to check now, is that thread is staying fairly tight, which is why you need to have it in a hoop, so that, because we need these to be quite strong. Obviously I'm going to carry on my diagonal shape there, but here at the top you can just vary how many stitches you end up doing up and over. So I haven't got enough thread now to take me back down to the bottom. So I'm just going to make sure that that's nice and tight. Just catch a bit of thread, a bit of fabric. Oops. There we go. Just go through there a couple of times, double knot it. Trim that off into your aught. Just happen to have another one ready to go. Okay, so just check your fabric's nice and tight, it's not got any looser. So I'm start here this time. So this time, because I'd got my extra bit of fabric that I'd added on, I hope this works. In my head it should do. So I'll go through both pieces of fabric now. To move that bit over. Now obviously this is going to move a little bit. There's my stitch, so then it comes out of there. Oops, right, then over the top. Don't want to go in there, which is in line with those stitches, because it's a bit too near the hole, so I'm going to move on to my next stitch. Probably should have had that a little bit closer to the other one, but it was near the edge of the circle. So I'll just make sure that the next one that I do is a little bit narrower. So this is really nice, this red thread. I thought it was just a red thread, but it's not, it's a variegated one. It's a stranded cotton from CGT in Australia. Pam and Katie. Beautiful threads, absolutely gorgeous. Right, so this one that I'm going to do it, just going to do, yeah, I'm going to do it a little bit closer. Obviously if you were doing this for clothes it would be a lot closer, but ours is just for decorative. Well, I hope it is. You never know, might take this all off once I've cut it all out and it goes, well, I was going to say it goes in the bin, but I don't ever tend to throw anything away. It'll get upcycled into another project. So I'm coming up next to the other one, going across to my circle, let's go back in there. So I'm going to have to be really careful with this that I don't go and scrunch it up. So it needs to stay flat. So if you're using a fabric that you think, oh, it's a bit thin, a bit delicate, you could always pop some interfacing on the back just to make it a little bit stronger. But if you choose a fabric that's fairly sturdy, you should be okay. I think this needle that I'm using has got a little bit of a rust spot on it. I can just feel it catching as it's going through. Okay, so I'm going to carry on going. This is the basic principle of what we're doing, and then once I've got this bit done, then I'll come back with the second part of our darning. Okay, I will see you in a few minutes. Right, I'm back. So that took a little bit longer than what I actually thought. If I pull that up there, you can see then I've done running stitches and I've got my lines all the way. So what I'm doing now is I'm going now with a coordinating thread, and what I'm doing is in between the lines of stitches I'm doing a running stitch, and then where the stitches are I'm weaving my needle through the stitches, so just going up and over. Now it would be easier to do this with a blunt needle, but I also need to be able to stitch with it as well. So this is not exactly the same as you would do with darning. With darning you would have done the running stitches stepped, but seeing as though we're using it for more decorative purposes, and over, so what I'm doing is I'm weaving through, and then when you get to the end just go through to the back, oops, and then in the gap in between the stitches here, so I'm now coming back along this gap, I'm going to do a running stitch. Oops, so I'm going for a contrasting thread. There we go. This is taking a bit longer than what I thought it was going to do, but I think it'd be quite nice to mix and match some of these flags with weeks that are quite maybe straightforward, a bit more straightforward, and then some that are a little bit more challenging. Possibly some that might be even more challenging, a lot more than what I initially anticipated. But it's all good. Learning new skills. So as you start doing this weaving and warps and wefts, it's going to strengthen your fabric back up. It's been quite nice actually sitting this afternoon and doing this. Just a bit of a break from the everyday. I quite like it. I'm pleased it's going okay so far. I'm quite excited to see when we get down to the actual hole. Also quite pleased that it's working, because in my head I was thinking, oh god, if it doesn't work then we'll have to do something else, and I really wanted it to work. Okay, so as you start coming down then to the next bit, you're going to have some rows where you'll be doing weaving and stitching depending on what you've got as your next line. So my next line is a line of stitching, so just going to have a look. So that was an over, so that one needs to be an under. There we go. Take it through to the back. Oh, that's quite pretty. Right, so I'm in between my running stitches now, so do another line of running stitch. Just having to go forwards, backwards, rather than actually having to just do a running one with the needle, because the double layer of fabric means your stitches end up being just a little bit too big. So with this one I'm going to be stitching along, and then I've got a little bit of weaving to do because I've got a mixture of the in between the lines and then the weaving. This is definitely one to sit and do and get something on the telly, or a reading book. Listen, not a reading book, a listen, you can't read a book. Well, I suppose you could do. Right, so, and then I've got to, so because that one there was an under, then here I need to go over. So just come up. So going over, under, over, and then I'm stitching again. So some of them, because it's a circle that we've done, you've got a bit of a mix of some of your stitches. And then when we come to the ones with the stitches, we are just doing underovers, underovers. So I'm ready to start my next line. So I went over there, so that one needs to be an under. So this one is an over. So go over, under, over, under. Under, oops, and then it goes into, oops, line of stitching, over, under, oops. It's a lot easier doing weaving if you've got a blunt needle, but I suppose you could just do your needle the wrong way around. So if you're having problems, flip your needle the other way around. So you've got the eye of your needle. Sometimes that can be a little bit easier because you're less likely to go through your fabric and your thread. I've done a woven one, so then this one is a stitched one, and basically you just keep going. Oops. So we're doing a stitched one, with an over, under, and a stitch. So again, once you get onto this bit in the middle, just be careful with the tension of what you're doing. Oops. So I'm coming back towards a bit now that I need to weave. So it went under first, so it needs to go over this time. Go. Over, under. Over. Go. Now this is the bit then that will anchor the majority of it down, because you're either stitching first or weaving. So this will keep your threads nice and tight. Ow! Oh. Okay, I'm going to do a bit of a close-up so you can see where I'm up to. Go on, camera, you know you want to focus. It doesn't want to focus. Normally it does. No, we're not focusing. Alright, we'll have to do it down here then. There we go. I was being a bit impatient. So you just start building up these patterns. So if you've got stitch, you are weaving. And always look to the last one that you did. So that was an over, so this needs to go under, over, under, hold on. Yeah, I've ended up putting a couple of extra stitches in at that side. I didn't keep them symmetrical. I missed a stitch. That's okay, not have to worry about that. Back to the back. Now what you can do on this bit, if you want to, you could end up doing doubles, or just in between your gap, again you do a couple of stitches to get you going, because this just anchors your thread as well. It'll stop it all from moving about. And then just have a look. So the last one was an over, so turn my needle round. Oh, the concentration. Okay. Obviously if you're doing this for darning, these would be a lot closer together. We're just going for like a really cute effect. So I'm going to carry on adding some bits. I might even come back in and add some other bits in here, there and everywhere, but that's the basic principle of this week's darning. And then it'll be a case of attaching it. So when we attach it to our tag, I'll have to make a decision about whether or not I'll leave it as tag coloured underneath, or got a bit of paper. I might end up popping a piece of paper underneath, so then you can actually see the pattern. But I'll post some pictures once it's done. So that's today's flag. Bit more time consuming, a bit of weaving going on and playing around with some shapes, but I will post some pictures once it's all done with some close-ups. So I hope you enjoy it. Flag number 2, and I will see you again next week. See you soon. Ta-da!